Hey guys, let's get more news about Steelers, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Mike Tomlin downplays Jayden Daniels' hype after Commanders' loss. Mike Tomlin doesn't want to hear anyone comparing Jayden Daniels to Lamar Jackson. Not after Tomlin's Pittsburgh Steelers beat the Washington Commanders on the road in Week 10 and are preparing to face Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday, November 17. Speaking after the Steelers won 28-27 at Northwest Stadium, Tomlin downplayed familiar comparisons between Daniels and Jackson. Tomlin cautioned reporters, "Man, be real slow comparing people to Lamar Jackson. That's a multi-time MVP. That's Mr. Jackson. We'll see Mr. Jackson in a few days," per Nikki Jabvala of The Washington Post. Mike Tomlin, in his post-game presser, was asked about the similarity between Jayden Daniels and Lamar Jackson. "Man, be real slow comparing people to Lamar Jackson. That's a multi-time MVP. That's Mr. Jackson. We'll see Mr. Jackson in a few days." It's a fair statement, considering Jackson has won 2 NFL MVP awards, while Daniels is still finding his feet in the pros. Their dual-threat skill sets and college accolades mean comparisons are inevitable, but Daniels still has a lot of room to develop. The second pick in this year's draft has been sensational for most of the season, but Daniels showed some growing pains against a tough and resourceful defense. Daniels' rough day was summed up by him completing just 50% of his passes against the Steelers. He did have 202 yards to show for his 17 completions, but Daniels didn't throw a touchdown, while his 5.9-yard average per pass was his lowest in a full start since entering the league. This is not to say Daniels was the only reason the Commanders lost this game. There were other issues, like his offensive line giving up 3 sacks, and Olamide Zaccheaus muffing a pair of punts. An overmatched secondary was also beaten deep too often by Steelers QB Russell Wilson and his receivers. Key penalties were another problem, none more hurtful than rookie defensive tackle Jajon Johnny Newton jumping off sides to give the Steelers the chance to run out the clock, a gaffe highlighted by Mr. Matthew CFB. Daniels has been a true talisman during his maiden season, but this game won't have quieted talk he could be hitting the rookie wall. The same thing can happen to any player, but it's probably no bad thing for the Commanders to slow the hype and follow Tomlin's lead in rejecting those Jackson comparisons. Labriola on the win over Washington. This was why. Why you added him to the roster 2 years after spending a number 1 pick on the position. Why you were overly patient and extra cautious with what was supposed to be a minor injury even as the clock was ticking on the start of the regular season. Why you never gave up on the notion of him, even as his young, talented backup was winning games while he watched. Why it was the right thing to do to put him in the lineup and give him a chance even as so many questioned, criticized, or even mocked the decision. Why the risk was worth it. It has been 3 weeks since coach Mike Tomlin inserted Russell Wilson into the lineup to do the job he was brought to Pittsburgh to do all along, but it wasn't until Sunday against Washington that the timing and the rationale behind the decision came into sharp focus. Coming off their bye week, the Steelers were 2-0 with Wilson and 6-2 overall going into a showdown versus the best opponent to this point on its schedule, a schedule that, by the way, only will get more difficult moving forward. In winning those first 2 with Wilson at quarterback, the Steelers handled teams with losing records in front of a home crowd. They used some flashy special teams, a battering ram of a running game, and some dynamic plays from their defense, and Wilson played pretty well, too. The Commanders posed a much greater degree of difficulty for the very simple reason that they were more talented and better coached and had the confidence that comes from winning 7 of their previous 8 games. And as Sunday's exercise unfolded, the Commanders made some plays, took advantage when the Steelers presented some opportunities, and generally stood toe-to-toe and traded punches. The wind was tricky and required some adjustment. In other words, the Steelers found themselves in a test of wills that was going to last the entire 4 quarters. Whether the decision to fake a punt on 4th and 15 from their own 16-yard line with a 7-0 lead in the first quarter was rashly aggressive or a perfectly timed gamble that became a disaster only after a pass was dropped that was accurate enough and long enough to get the first down is arguable. The defense can be judged on the 5 3-and-outs it inflicted or on the touchdown drive that started at the Washington 4-yard line and included 3 third-down conversions and a face mask penalty that wiped out a sack. And while the offense had gotten the ball into the end zone twice, it still had to punt 5 times in the first half, and its only chunk plays were a 12-yard run and a 16-yard circus catch. Assigning blame is an inevitable part of professional sports, and everything that happened on Sunday will be blogged and podcast and graded and rated to death, but none of that really mattered on the floor of Northwest Stadium. The opportunity that each game presents to a team during an NFL regular season is precious, and the ability to manipulate the outcome in your favor is what pays the bills in this business. And the people experienced in the ways of the NFL realize that the outcome of as few as a half-dozen plays can be the difference between seizing or squandering each of those 17 opportunities. Loss to Mike Tomlin's Steelers stings badly, Commanders HC Dan Quinn says. Game unfolded just like we expected. Pittsburgh Steelers HC Mike Tomlin and Washington Commanders HC Dan Quinn go back a long way, and thus know each other very well. Quinn was a defensive line coach at Williams and Mary when Tomlin played wide receiver there. It was he who recommended Tomlin for his first coaching job, so Buffalo Bills HC Scott McDermott isn't the only other head coaching William and Mary connection. But the long and short of it is Quinn knew exactly what he was going to get out of Tomlin's Steelers. The only problem was his Commanders couldn't stop it often enough to win. Heading into this game, I really thought it was going to be a hard-fought game, Quinn said after the Commanders lost to Tomlin's 7-2 Steelers. And it was just like we expected. Bobby Wagner had spoken to the team earlier today about moments and opportunities, and I thought he was absolutely spot on. There were moments and there were opportunities, so this one stings badly. The Commanders have been having a charmed season with rookie QB Jayden Daniels, going into the game 7-2. For perspective, in most seasons, 7 wins by the end of the year had been good for the Commanders. Steelers fans under Tomlin have never experienced such a low win total, and they certainly won't this year. Quinn is in his first season as the Commanders' head coach, however, and seems to be turning the program around. Having a talent like Daniels at quarterback certainly helps. Mike Tomlin, too, understands the importance of quarterback play. That is why the Steelers turned to Russell Wilson once healthy, even though Justin Fields had been successful. And I have no doubt Quinn knows the Commanders can learn a thing or two from Tomlin's Steelers. They are literally the epitome of consistency in today's NFL, the same year in and year out. But he is excited about the culture he is seeing develop, all the same. The team is absolutely still all in for one another, and I love that about them. How tough we are, Quinn said following the loss to Tomlin and the Steelers. It should sting. These are the ones that, you look back, you learn. I also said, we've got to turn quickly. In particular, Quinn credited the Steelers' defense for stymieing their run game with penetration. He noted Tomlin's aggressive linebackers forcing negative plays and getting them into unfamiliar positions. And he also noted the Steelers' uptick in blitzing, attributing that in part to their getting healthier. But no doubt it was also a product of playing a mobile, rookie quarterback. Daniels, for his part, highlighted the Steelers' defensive line. I certainly felt their energy and defensive style coming to life, Quinn said of the Steelers, Tomlin employing a wider variety of blitz looks. Unfortunately, they will probably be without Alex Highsmith for a while, so that will also limit their options for Baltimore. And John Harbaugh and the Ravens certainly know Tomlin and the Steelers just as well. And you, fan? What do you think of the situation of Dan Quinn? Leave your opinion in the comments.